Hari Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Bhalama Giri Vadadhari Gopi Jana Bhalama Giri Vadadhari Gopi Jana Bhalama Giri Vadadhari Gopi Jana Bhalama Yasoda Nandana Vrajajana Randana Nandana Vrajajana Yasoda Nandana Vrajajana Randana Nandana Vrajajana Yamuna Tiravana Chari Jamuna Tiravana Chari Natiravana Chari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Giri Vadadhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Giri Vadadhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Giri Vadadhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Yasodanandana Vrajajana Yasodanandana Vrajajana Yamuna Tiravana Chari Yamuna Tiravana Chari Tiravana Chari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Vishnu Srimad His Divine Grace Sri Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Gaur Pimanandi Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya I missed a couple of chapters, but I'll try to catch up with you all. This morning, we're discussing chapter 18, right? Somebody say yes. Yes, thank you. Okay. Prithu Maharaj milks the earth planet. This is a bit of a mysterious chapter. Well, even the previous chapter, a little bit mysterious, like, why is Prithu chasing after a cow all over the place? You protect cows, why is he chasing after the cow? The cow is not just symbolic, but the cow, Mother Earth took the shape of a cow in order to appeal to the demigods who went to Lord Brahma, who went to the shore of the Milk Ocean, to appeal on behalf of Mother Earth in the form of grief to the excessive burden of demoniac kings that were causing great trouble for the earth, for Mother Earth. So here we are again with Earth in the form of a cow, because the earth was restricting. And Prithu is the king, and he wants to have the earth supply his citizens. And the earth was not supplying. And so even with the cow who you protect, he was strong, circumstance requiring. So the good news is, in the course of this chapter, it becomes nice again. So the chapter opens. She offered some prayers. The prayers didn't satisfy or pacify his anger, because the necessities were not being supplied still. She gave nice prayers, that's okay. But the necessities, please, is for the citizens. And the earth is the one that supplies the necessities. And the earth, we're going to hear, supplies necessities when the necessities that she supplies are used properly. It's very sensible, actually very sensible. Supposing somebody is really good with managing resources, and supposing another person is not very good at managing resources, and you have some resources, who are you going to give those resources to? To the one who manages the resources nicely. And then, okay, what's the standard of managing resources nicely? That's described in this chapter. And it's made, the distinction is being made, the devotee, the non-devotee. And the non-devotee is one who takes resources and selfishly deploys them for selfish purposes, means not for their higher purpose, not for the actual purpose of the earth's resources. And for that reason, the earth was restricting, she's going to say. I'll read the first few verses. And she then describes how the resources can again be abundantly supplied. The terminology is her milk. Cows supply milk, but Mother Earth supplies more than milk. Mother Earth supplies seeds, and from seeds come other necessities. So she was holding them, withholding them, concealing them from the misuse of people who would misuse them for unwholesome purposes. And that happens. That's the picture that we get from Srila Prabhupada's purports, same as what we hear in the first canto, again, here in this canto. The earth can supply abundantly, no problem. So how to make the arrangement so the earth supplies abundantly? Take that which the earth supplies in whatever the quantity is and whatever the quality is, offer them to the source of all resources, of all abundance. Offer to make the principle is the principle of sacrifice. The principle of sacrifice is made possible through the agency of brahmanas, at least in the ritual section of the Vedas. One requires qualified brahmanas that know the mantras, and they have a purified condition of heart. And so with the mantras and with the offerings are made to the enjoyer of the sacrifice, the bhokta of the yajna. Ultimately, we know from Bhagavad Gita that's Krishna. And when that is done, then earth is happy to supply all necessities in abundance. So the metaphor is the cow gives milk, and then the earth is going to, we're going to hear in the chapter, the earth gives to everybody their necessities. Even bad people will hear, the demons and rakshasas and bad people. The earth supplies equally, just like now they when they receive, they're going to do something unwholesome with what they receive. But in this, how to get the resources from the earth or from Mother Cow is bring a calf and bring a vessel to hold the milk and engage in, like a calf is getting very readily given the milk of the cow, earth will supply by the process of sacrifice. And then the rest of the chapter is this kind of mystical, don't ask me to explain it, how's the technology work? Different personalities assume such and such forms, like a calf approaching the cow or the earth, and necessities are supplied. Here's how it begins. My dear Vidura, at that time, after the planet Earth finished her prayers, King Prithu was still not pacified, and his lips trembled in great anger. Now, in this whole chapter, that whole mood will change. Although the planet Earth was frightened, she made up her mind and began to speak as follows in order to convince the king. My dear Lord, please pacify your anger completely and hear patiently whatever I submit before you. Please turn your kind attention to this. I may be very poor, but a learned man takes the essence of knowledge from all places, just as a bumblebee collects honey from each and every flower. Text 3. To benefit all human society, not only in this life, but in the next, the great seers and sages have prescribed various methods conducive to the prosperity of the people in general. The Vedas are with that purpose, necessities through this medium. And the sages and the rishis, they have various methods, but they're all intended to supply necessities to human society. And when that is accomplished, the other forms of life are also benefited. Then comes verse number 4, which is the one we're supposed to focus on for this morning. One who follows the principles and instructions enjoined by the great sages of the past can utilize these instructions for practical purposes. Such a person can very easily enjoy life and pleasures. Sounds like karma kanda. Sounds like, do, please, receive, enjoy. Like business. We'll come back to the purport at the end. Text 5. A foolish person who manufactures his own ways and means through mental speculation and does not recognize the authority of the sages who lay down unimpeachable directions is simply unsuccessful again and again in his attempts. Modern life. My dear king, the seeds, roots, herbs, and grains which were created by Lord Brahma in the past are now being used by non-devotees. Asadbihi, asadbihi is translated as devotee, non-devotees. So sat and asat, those are dedicated to illusion, is the asat people, who are devoid of all spiritual understanding. My dear king, not only are grains and herbs being used by the Asat people, but as far as I'm concerned, I'm not being properly maintained. Indeed, I'm being neglected by kings who are not punishing these rascals. Prabhupada, one of his favorite words. Who have turned into thieves by using grains for sense gratification. Now, there isn't even a word in Sanskrit that's, he just tossed it in there. Anyway. Consequently, I, Earth, have hidden all these seeds which were meant for the performance of sacrifice. So this is Mother Earth's perspective on what she's able to supply, or the purpose behind everything, the purpose behind the divine arrangement for all mankind and all species of life to have their necessities. There's a purpose that specifically for human form of life to offer sacrifice to the Supreme, because that's the mission of human life. But not acknowledging that mission of human life, they're using for some other purpose. And therefore, Earth has hidden all these seeds. Therefore, the production which Prithu wants to see for his citizens isn't abundant because people are misusing them and had been misusing them, particularly during the reign of King Vena. Due to being stocked for a very long time, all the grain seeds within me have certainly deteriorated. Therefore, so that's why she's doing what she's doing. Now here's the path forward. You should immediately arrange to take these seeds out by the standard process, which is recommended by the Acharyas or Shastras. So that standard process is what has been neglected, and therefore it's everything's being withheld. So go back to, you're the king, you're an incarnation. So engage in this standard process, please, and everything will be there. I'm going to read just a little bit from the purport of this text 8. As we have learned from the previous verse, this is towards the end of the purport of text 8. One who is not Krishna conscious is considered a thief. That's the Asat Bihi people. Even though he may be materially very advanced, a thief cannot be placed in a comfortable position. A thief is a thief, and he is punishable. Because people are without Krishna consciousness, they have become thieves. And consequently, they are being punished by the laws of material nature. No one can check this, not even by introducing so many relief funds and humanitarian institutions. Unless the people of the world take to Krishna consciousness, there will be a scarcity of food and much suffering. Prabhupada wasn't a king. He didn't want to be a king. He wanted to guide kings. And he wanted to, minus the kings being guided, he wanted to guide the people so that they could do, and despite the kings being absent in the world or in their lives, or in our lives, because there are principles to be followed. And when principles are followed, necessities are naturally going to be supplied. Yogakshem Bahamyaham. Text 9 and 10. O great hero, protector of living entities, if you desire to relieve living entities by supplying them with sufficient grain, And if you desire to nourish them by taking milk from me, milk again is used in a metaphorical sense, not necessarily a literal sense. You should make arrangements to bring a calf suitable for this purpose and a pot in which the milk can be kept, as well as a milkman to do the work. Since I'll be very much affectionate toward my calf, your desire to take milk from me will be fulfilled. In the purport to that verse, halfway down, even though the earth's being in the shape of a cow may be taken figuratively, the meaning herein is very explicit. Just as a calf can derive milk from a cow, all living entities, including animals, birds, bees, reptiles, and aquatics, can receive their respective foods from the planet Earth, provided that human beings are not asat or adritra vrata, as we have previously discussed. When human society becomes asat or ungodly or devoid of Krishna consciousness, the entire world suffers. If human beings are well behaved, animals will also receive sufficient food and be happy. The ungodly human being, ignorant of his duty to give protection and food to the animals, kills them to compensate for the insufficient production of grains. Thus, no one is satisfied, and that is the cause for the present condition in today's world. Amen. I mean, that's a summation of not only Prabhupada's picture of turmoil in the world, but the solution. And this little chapter, and the whole section here is describing, on the one hand, and on the other hand, there's the asat and there's the sat. And those that are in the asat position, they don't know. And that not knowing, because they have issues with Krishna, they're turning their attention towards material enjoyment. Even those who profess to be godly, isn't it? I mean, I had the opportunity the other day driving up and down from here to Austin and back on Route 290, and it was hard to chant looking out the window and seeing all those cattle out there. They're peacefully grazing, etc., and knowing what the purpose was. And in the Midwest, it's miles and miles and miles and miles and miles, and all direction is cornfields. What's it for? Yeah. It's not, where's the grain production anyway? And this is how many churches? Sorry to say, but something's missing in the godliness of those. Anyway, so back to Prabhupada's statement, the solution is taking the necessities and offering to the Supreme, and then the animals will also have their necessities, and we don't abuse the grain, and we don't abuse the animals. That's therefore there's a sector of society that are meant for cow protection, or the term in America is animal husbandry. It's a nice term. I know some devotees that have land, and that's what they do. They don't do agriculture. They just have different species on their land, and they take care of them like God's creatures. And that's their consciousness, that's their motivation, and It's not something that everybody needs to do, but it's a principle of how to regard, as Mother Earth is saying, not only they aren't maintained, I'm not maintained. We all know about that one. And there's no brake pedal other than what's in the interest of sense gratification. And that's not a brake pedal. That just find another way around the brake, that God consciousness is the solution. And Krishna consciousness is that the expression where all creatures come from God, and there's a specific function in the whole of the variety of species that the human form of life has, and perform that, and everything is there. Everything is there. So back to text 11. My dear king, may I inform you that you have to make the entire surface of the globe level. This is a big part of Prithu Maharaja's contribution. Of course, there's many mountain ranges, but the appeal of Mother Earth is make the surface of the earth level because that's better for agriculture. This will help me even when the rainy season has ceased. Rainfall comes by the mercy of King Indra. Rainfall will remain on the surface of the globe, always keeping the earth moistened, and thus it will be auspicious for all kinds of production. There's several different, I'm going to go over to left field for a moment and they'll come back. There are efforts being made by organizations to restore the soil, save soil movements, because the methods of agriculture are exploitative, that removes the organic content from the soil and makes it produce less. And even when it produces less, the food value is 1/8 of what it should be, could be, would be. So, and the what has happened over X number of years and what's projected to what will continue over some certain other number of years. It's a dimension for devotees that have Krishna conscious farms. They're into it, and of course, they're models that other people can learn from, and how much learning is going to be there for others, because it's the same issue here. Earth will restrict. So devotee farms can then produce so much. If the land is treated with proper and natural, the science can say what it is, and common sense can say what it is. But I'll just go on. I'm going to tell a little story. Some years ago, Prabhupada wanted temples that are well established to have a farm community connected to them, to demonstrate simple living, high thinking. There was an appeal. And it became, those that had the capacity tried to do that. And so from the years that I spent in New York temple, the brahmacharis raised some funds, and somebody was given the responsibility to find the farm. And it took like 2 years to find the choice farm, and he ended up being Gita Nagari. not very proximate to New York, but that's what happened because the land is very fertile. And when the farm began, the people in Pennsylvania, being not, Hare Krishna devotees, they were a little uncomfortable with their new neighbors. And so to help bring about a change, the devotee that was in charge of the farm and in charge of the agriculture, both, Paramananda, decided to enter into the annual state fair. And because one of the main activities in Gitanagari was cow production and protection and milk production. So he entered 3 cows in the farm show of the state fair. And every year, first, second, and third place, first, second, and third place, first, second, and third place. So the farmer started asking him, like, how do you do this? What's your secret? And he didn't say, I won't tell you because I want to be first, second, and third place. He said, we take care of the cows like our mother. And because we take care of the cows like our mother, the cows produce 2, 3, sometimes 4 times what other cows produce, because they're not treated in the same way with that same care and affection and dignity. And it's so they were like, wow. I don't know what the result was, but it certainly, as far as what they did with their cows, but it brought respect, which was the intention of entering into the state fair farm show. Like, these people, they're onto something based upon the result. And similarly, the principle is principle. Like Prabhupada is saying, a thief is a thief. And care for the land produces results. So it's a model meant to demonstrate the principle. So off we go. After hearing the auspicious and pleasing words of the planet Earth, the king accepted them. And the rest of the chapter is describing how different personalities were transformed. Doesn't say how, but transformed into a calf. And then, like Swayambhuva Manu, because this is during the reign of Swayambhuva Manu, Canto 4, he became a calf, or somehow an expansion of him or something. And the calf milked all the herbs and grains from the earth in the form of a cow, keeping them in his cupped hands. That was the vessel. Others who were as intelligent as King Prithu also took the essence out of the earthly planet. Indeed, everyone took this opportunity to follow in the footsteps of King Prithu and get whatever he desired from the planet Earth. So this is the process. When the intention is to offer in sacrifice to the Supreme, and one acts like a calf to a cow in a respectful manner, the earth supplies. And so the rest of the chapter is this person, that person, the other person assumed this form, that form, the other form, and received their necessities. The planet Earth, I'm on text 26. The planet Earth supplied everyone his respective food. During the time of King Prithu, the earth was fully under the control of the king. Thus, all the inhabitants of the earth could get their food supply by creating various types of calves and putting their particular types of milk in various pots. My dear Vidura, in this way, King Prithu and all others who subsist on food created different types of calves and milked out their respective eatables. Thus, they received their various foodstuffs, which were symbolized as milk. Okay, so everyone's getting their necessities. Then Prithu is going about leveling the earth. And we're almost done with the chapter. To all the citizens of the state, Prithu was as good as a father. Thus, he was visibly engaged in giving them proper subsistence and proper employment for subsistence. After leveling the surface of the globe, he earmarked different places for residential quarters, in as much as they were desirable. In this way, the king founded many types of villages, settlements, and towns, and built forest residences for cowherd men, stables for the animals, and places for the royal camps, mining places, agricultural towns, and mountain villages. Mountain villages, even he leveled the earth, they're still mountains. Before the reign of King Prithu, there was no planned arrangement for different cities, villages, etc. Everything was scattered, and everyone constructed his residential quarters according to his own convenience. However, since King Prithu's plans were made for towns and villages. However, since King Prithu, plans were made for towns and villages. So city planning isn't a new thing. Now I'm going to go back and just read the purport for text 4, right? Somebody say yes. Yes, okay. Purport for text 4. The Vedic principles, Mahajano Yena Kata Sapanta, urge us to follow in the footsteps of great liberated souls. In this way, we can receive benefit in both this life and the next, and we can also improve our material life. By following the principles laid down by great sages and saints of the past, we can very easily understand the aim of all life. The word avara, meaning inexperienced, is also significant in this verse. Every conditioned soul is inexperienced. Everyone is abodha jata. Here we go. Born fool and rascal. In democratic government at the present moment, all kinds of fools and rascals are making decisions. But what can they do? What is the result of their legislation? They enact something today just to whimsically repeal it tomorrow. One political party utilizes a country for one purpose, and the next moment another political party forms a different type of government and nullifies all the laws and regulations. The process of chewing the chewed, punash charvata charvananam, will never make human society happy. Then comes back the theme of the verse. In order to make all human society happy and prosperous, we should accept the standard methods given by liberated persons. Mahajano Yena Kata Sampanta. Very consistent. I imagine that there's some Back to Godhead article somewhere. It's during the many years of Back to Godhead, describing Prithu Maharaj's life and his contribution. And if supposing you had to write a Back to Godhead article, what to speak of, write, the Bhaktivedanta purports for all of this, how would you cover it? It would be a real challenge. But the principle is nonetheless clear. There are standard processes. They don't change with time. The shape of them may look like this or look like that, but the principle doesn't change. And when one follows those principles and doesn't toss them and make up something else, then necessities are there spiritual elevation is there because built into the processes is recognition of the Supreme and gradual elevation by recognition of the Supreme by standard processes. Necessities are there. And when at the same time is doing that which will provide necessities for other forms of life besides human form of life. Or as Prabhupada expressed it, one can also realize the purpose of life. Supposing you don't know the purpose of life. Supposing you don't have Prabhupada's books and that kind of association. The Vedic process is a slow, gradual process that gradually, through purification and recognition of higher authority, one becomes more eligible, more receptive to higher teachings. So that's chapter 18. Let's see if there's some discussion. This is a good group, so I'm allowing discussion time.
I had a small question about it's kind of like why Bhumi.
Why what?
Bhumi, Mother Earth. When, from my understanding, she's a pure devotee, right?
Say it again. Who?
From my understanding, Bhumi is a pure devotee.
Pure devotee. Well, I guess the answer to that is it depends on what your definition of a pure devotee is. So one could say yes, and one could say not exactly. And by saying not exactly, what does that mean? What it means is pure devotees have a destination, and that's the spiritual world. And there are persons that have responsibility in this world because they have some desire to be an enjoyer of this world. Demigods, for example, not just the planet Earth, Bhumi, but demigods, they're great devotees. And they also have some material desire, because if they didn't have material desire, they wouldn't take birth as a demigod. You follow my response to the premise. So she's a great devotee, yes.
I guess I was just wondering about her fear of Prithu Maharaj, and I guess if she would take shelter of Krishna in that situation where she's being chased, but also an understanding that Prithu Maharaj is an avatar of Krishna, and how the fear is there. I was wondering if she's aware that Prithu Maharaj is Krishna's Shaktivesh avatar.
Can anybody recall anything from this whole section that says what the realization of Bhumi was? The category of entity that Prithu, is he a king? Is he a Shaktivesh avatar? Is he a form of Lord Vishnu appearing in this world? Is there anything that describes what Bhumi's, I'm looking at Radha Krishna. Can you recall anything answering this question?
I can't really recall, but the way I understood is all kings are representative of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the monarchs.
Yes,
So
that's definitely a fact.
Yeah.
But that being the representative of and being are not identical. That now they're respected as good as, but not recognizing, not thinking that the king is God. I mean, that was Vena's problem. He thought he was God. Does that answer your question?
Sort of. I remember, I think the last chapter, someone was praying and they were addressing him as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And I asked Radha Krishna about that later. And he said that they were kind of addressing his potency, which he was bestowed with by the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
Radha Krishna is nodding. So some recognition, again, it could be a way of addressing, in this chapter, my Lord, addressing a king as the representative of. It could be in that sense that even saying that Supreme Personality of Godhead, we, exactly what the realization of Mother Earth was, of Prithu's position, is conjecture. We don't know. And that she's respecting him as Lord and even as Supreme Personality of Godhead. What was her realization? Was he this, or was he that, or was the other thing? Was he the representative of, and therefore addressing him in that way? Because sometimes that's done, even conventionally, what to speak of in scripture. There's a hand up back here. You want to respond to this question?
Yes, I was reading through the chapter yesterday, and at the end of chapter 17, in text 33 and 34, she's saying, like, you are the Supreme Personality of Godhead. My dear Lord, you are always unborn. You rescued me in your form as a boar. You created all the physical elements. And so
Okay, that takes care of it. Okay, very good. Thank you.
But I actually do have a question as well.
Well, you want to see if your question is
Okay.
satisfied. So if she has that realization, then your question is, why is she running and doing what she's doing?
Yeah, why is she afraid if she's its devotee, but she knows that they're the representative of Krishna?
Well, she requires protection, and she senses the opposite of protection. So she's fearful. But as the beginning, the very first verse of this chapter, she made up her mind and spoke, this is why I'm withholding. So please don't chastise me, please protect me. That's quite okay for a great devotee, Mother Earth, or for any great devotee to speak to the Supreme Lord in such a manner. Now, there are different moods of relationships, and she's exhibiting one of them. I think it's quite okay. I don't think it's inappropriate or something that a great devotee won't do. If they recognizing the Supreme Lord as angry, and you being on the receiving end of that anger, understand, okay, he has a reason for his anger, but there's a reason for why I'm doing what I'm doing, and let me explain that. And that having, I want to, so she says what she says. Please withdraw your anger. Please listen very carefully, because what I'm going to say is valuable. And so it's not inappropriate, because she's a great devotee, and she has some realization of Prithu as the personality of Godhead. Fear can also be there. Yes.
Yes, I'm wondering about Prithu Maharaj's reaction. It seems, I struggle to understand it. And the verse that we were reading, focusing on yesterday, was like, I'm bewildered by your pastimes. And yeah, I'm wondering why he reacted so hastily and angrily when he might have asked, because she did have a good reason. And then I'm thinking, if she's calling him the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the protector of religious principles, the knower of all living entities, then why is he, he would
Continue
know
to
her,
be angry.
and he knows her heart. If all these things are true, then I just assume that he also knows the reason, her good reason.
Well, I'll say two things. It doesn't mean that he's not benevolent. It doesn't mean he's not omniscient. Because he's benevolent, he is omniscient. So why would that, with that assumption, that there's some purpose that's other than what you and I might do when we see somebody, what to speak of, we have some understanding of their purpose and we acknowledge their purpose. So why would there be some strong action and speech and even anger? That's your question. Pastime, giving Bhumi an opportunity to give some teachings, which he's giving in a very interesting way to help us understand the importance of following standard procedures. Because, you know, her position is also quite reasonable. And she's reasoning with the Supreme Person, and that's also fine. That there are standard procedures the great sages, etc., have given. Just follow that. You don't need to chastise me. Just follow that. And he's happy with that answer, and he does that. So giving an opportunity for her to give some teachings and express to us some principles. The Leela. I mean, there's many situations in the personality of Godhead's pastimes where he's omniscient. I mean, let's, you know, because we just had Ram Navami. Ram didn't need the Vanaras to help him. He didn't need a bridge and all of those things that happened. And they were wonderful, but he didn't need that. He could just, like, you know, finish Ravana completely. But it's a pastime. And in the pastime, many lessons and many things, and many things and many things. So it's a pastime that's edifying for us, although he's omniscient and all powerful. And that in one sense it defies reason, but in the other sense it's quite reasonable. If he's omniscient, he knows exactly what her purpose is for her giving her purpose. Why is he giving her a situation where she can express her purpose and reason together with him and have his anger subsided, and now they become, you know, very affectionate to one another, which is what you would expect. It's a pastime for his own unfathomable purposes. That's a nice question. So we have to look at the activities of the avatars through the lens of, it doesn't have to match our sensibilities. There's purposes that are deep and profound. I'm thinking of a pastime in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's Leela, where Lord Nityananda broke Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's danda. Now, he's omniscient. And he broke his danda because he has a mood. And then when Lord Chaitanya asked him, "Where's my danda?" he told a lie. You can punish me if you like. But there was a purpose behind the Leela. Just sharing. At Champahati, which is the place where there's a deity of Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda, that was established by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu personally, and it was lost. Bhaktisiddhanta found that deity so many years later in a discarded shed, and they were restored. And he had a teenage boy who he gave Brahminical initiation to and told them for the rest of your life, worship this deity. And that devotee worshiped the deity as a brahmachari for the rest of his life. We visited there, and then this pujari was now, pushing his late 70s, early 80s, whatever his age was. He looked like that. And it said in Bengali to the translators that there's a pastime that he meditates on every day extensively, the pastime of Lord Nityananda breaking Lord Chaitanya's danda. Deep. And there's many, so and it wasn't so he could give a nice Chaitanya Charitamrita class. That was his devotion. So within the pastimes of the Lord that are hard to understand, there's volumes and volumes and volumes behind it that don't necessarily match our sensibility of, come on, he's omniscient. Why did he do that? And it's not just one answer. That's my response. So things that don't make sense, that's how we can, somehow there's another purpose. And if you really want to know that purpose, then great devotion is required, and then purposes become revealed. I like your question. That's why I'm spending so much time on it. Yes.
Krishna Maharaj. I'm curious about with protection and purpose.
Protection and
purpose.
Purpose.
Yes. In cow protection, I'm wondering, like with cow protection, a byproduct of cow protection is milk. And if you've got cows and you're keeping them and they're not serving their purpose, is it actually cow protection, or is it like just having pets and something to amuse people with? Would it be if they're not serving their purpose as like,
I'm trying to think of what the application of your question is. If supposing somebody has a facility and they're taking care of cows, and there's milk that comes from the cows. So what's the question of, what's the situation where the milk that comes from the cow that's being protected isn't being used for its purpose? What would be an application example? Let's take, for example, in Gita Nagari, they have a dairy where it's A2 milk, and they have a license to transport that milk across state boundaries. And so it goes all over the place, all over the Northeast. The Ayurvedic doctor, one Ayurvedic doctor in New Jersey, teaches her patients that that's a good place for A2 milk, the Gita Nagari farm. Now, those people, are they taking A2 milk because they want to offer it to Krishna? And is Gita Nagari in violation of the principle of that which comes from the protected cow should be used for people who are going to take the milk and use it and offer it to Krishna? Is that a possible example of what you're asking? I'm not clear what your question is. What's the example of your question? For example, what?
my example is that we have cows here in Houston.
Great.
And they're like Mangala, for instance, she's getting a little older and she's a little angry and she's moody, and like I feel like maybe she may be moody like this because
She may be what?
Her mood is because her purpose is not being served.
Well, that's speculation.
Yeah.
Well, then, what are you going to do? Make sure that she feels better. And then if your question, embedded in your question is, if the milk is not being used for the right purpose, the product of the cow. So, have a conversation with her. We're using your milk, for giving your milk to the deities. Haribol. Okay. So, but then it's not consistent with your question. If the production of the cow is not being used for its purpose. If the cow doesn't feel protected despite it not producing milk, then, go treat the cow nicely. That's what that example I gave with Paramananda, whether the cow is giving milk or not giving milk. If it's just natural, it's human nature and it's animal nature. If an animal feels affection, your thing was, is it just a pet? But it's cow protection. It's not just a pet. And it's how the animal, in this case, a cow, is being regarded. According to the Vedic conception, within the body of the cow, all the demigods are residing. So we respect the cow, whether she's giving milk or not. And it's 8:30, and I'm going to take one more question because you always get the last question. But speak slowly, please. Slowly and clearly.
It's more of a memory.
A memory. Okay, let's hear it.
My family helps raise cattle in Guatemala on a finca, and they are butchers. And when I was 20, I went to Guatemala and I went to the finca and I saw the process from how they round up the cow, put it on the truck, take it to another pen, then take it on that pen and they inject it with different types of things. And then I was raised to watch all the way to slaughter. And when I was a child, there was a natural queasiness to it. But when I was an adult, I was more aware of their sentience and consciousness. And what I experienced there was sadness, pure and utter fear and sadness, almost as if I was watching people being
Yeah.
harmed.
Yeah, naturally. I'll tell a little story, quick. During a period of time, I was with Niranjan Maharaj in Boston, and we, in the book distributors, met a man from the state of Maine that was a farmer, and he liked the book they gave him, and they developed a relationship with him. And one time we went to visit his farm, and he took us to the barn. And as we walked out into the barn, the cows came forward because they had affection for the farmer, and he gave their names. This one, this one, this one, this one, this one. They stuck out their tongue, and he gave something, and it was like, it was nice. And then it became dinner time, and he was having meat. And the question was, how can you do this? And his answer was, it's the only way to survive. That was his answer. Because the price structure of agriculture and the supply of the seeds and this and that, they got the farmer in a vice, and they're tightening the vice. And the only way to survive. We didn't like freak out on the man, but he understood, and on the other hand, he didn't understand. It was very painful. Very painful, because he understood. There's other things in that exchange. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.